More than 40 journalists have been killed around the world in 2008, and while that's lower than the unprecedented numbers we saw over the last few years, by historical standards, it's still very high. The primary reason is Iraq.
Iraq is once again the most dangerous place to be a journalist in the world, and particularly in the Middle East. This year, CPJ has documented 11 journalist deaths. All of those journalists are Iraqis, and all of them were working for local Iraqi news outlets. Most of the journalists that are killed in Iraq are targeted for their work. They're not killed in crossfire. The good news, if there is any good news, is that that number is down significantly from 32 last year and the year before. There are other places in the Middle East where it's also very dangerous to be a journalist, and one of those is in the Gaza Strip. In Gaza this year, we had the killing of Reuters cameraman Fadil Shana. He took his camera out and set it up on a piece of open ground to film 2 Israeli tanks that were on a ridge overlooking a village. He stood out there filming for 4 minutes when suddenly there was a muzzle flash from one of the tanks. We see the camera fall to the ground and go black. He was killed. His soundman was badly injured by the shell, which was a shell that explodes and releases thousands of tiny metal darts into the air.
In other parts of the world where there's systematic violence against the press and impunity for the killers of journalists, we've been launching a campaign to try and bring the killers to justice. We focused this year on Russia and the Philippines and also on Mexico.
Russia remains one of the most dangerous countries in the world for journalists. Since 1992, 49 have been killed on the job. Only Iraq and Algeria have higher numbers. Russia is also one of the countries with the highest level of impunity in bringing justice into journalist killings. This year alone, we have had 2 journalists killed in Russia on the job. And both of these journalists were killed in the rest of North Caucasus region. Now, the North Caucasus have long been the most dangerous assignment for journalists in Russia. Local journalists are often the target of harassment, of physical attacks, and sometimes of targeted murder.
And in the Philippines, we've spotlighted the case of investigative journalist Marlene Garcia Esperat, who was murdered in reprisal for her reporting on a corruption scandal in the Agricultural Ministry. And the alleged masterminds of that killing were indicted in 2008, and that's as a result in part of our work and the work of Philippine groups who've continuously demanded justice in this case. I was a journalist, a correspondent for many years in Mexico, and so I have a very personal interest in defending the rights of journalists who are working, frankly, under extremely difficult conditions. We confirmed in Mexico in 2008 that 1 journalist was killed in direct reprisal for his reporting, but there are 5 other cases in which we simply don't have enough evidence to make a determination one way or another. But taken together, the level of violence against journalists in Mexico is staggering.